Hey, you, Nina here. You're officially listening to Triggered. Can we play with that wherever you get your podcast? You might also be watching us on YouTube. Hey. And if you're not following me on Instagram at Drama Therapist Nina, now is a good time to do that. Okay. So we have a real good episode here for y'all. This is the Liberatory Mindset episode. We just wrapped the Empowered Human 101 workshop later this month, September 23rd from 10 to 11. You can RSVP at the link in my bio on Instagram. Yes, we're going to be doing another free workshop on liberatory mindset, which is, again, exactly what this episode is about. I'm going to reteach the tool in that workshop. And then I want you to listen to this episode and bring your questions, bring your examples, bring your concerns. Let us work through how do we develop a liberatory mindset and start challenging the binaries that exist in literally any identity piece. I promise you, we can find the binary and we want to challenge it, just so we're clear. So, if you listen to today's episode, it's not going to be everything, but I am inviting you, right? We're consenting to traipse into maybe some sticky and uncomfortable territory, okay? I want us to diversify how we play with things. It's not going to be everything, but it will be at least one facet, right? For us to work on transforming hard conversations into teachable moments. So, have a journal on hand. We're a really good friend at dialogue with what comes up for you in this episode, because for now, you know that I am curious. Are you ready to play?
Welcome to Triggered. Can we play with that? You know that moment when your emotions ramp up in an instant, leaving you feeling helpless, frozen, or out of control? In that moment, you've been emotionally hijacked, the very definition of triggered. And I want to ask you, can we play with that? I'm Nina L. Garcia, drama therapist and empowerment coach of Houston Creative Arts Therapy. Join me as we discover ways to empower you and the people who mean the most to you to transform hard conversations into teachable moments. Triggered. Real playful, real respectful, real empowered.
Let's take a breath. So today's episode is about liberatory mindset, right? And liberatory mindset is inspired by liberatory consciousness. If you are a resource person, I want you to go read Barbara J. Love's essay on liberatory consciousness. If you need it, hit me up. Otherwise, head to Google. It will pop up. It's an incredible essay. But what I want us to be really thinking about as we move through this episode is the reality that all of us live in oppressive systems. It is a reality of the world that we live in. And when we think about liberatory mindset and freeing ourselves from the idea of oppression, from the reality of oppression, right, in our thoughts, in our feelings, and in our behaviors, that what I'm going to offer you today is merely one creative way for you to say, I don't want to be in the system in the way that I have been. And now I'd like to be more intentionally in the system in a way that I could be. Yes, we want to move from something that's not working for us to something that is. Are you ready? Okay, let's do this. So, many of us throughout our lifetime have experienced oppression. We might have called it oppression. We might have called it bullying. We might have called it any number of things. But here is what I want you to start to think about. When you think about, really, am I free? Am I free in my thoughts? Am I free in my feelings? Am I free in my behaviors? Am I liberated from what someone might have taught me that might be, here we go in your journal, that might be minimizing, misrepresenting, or outright rejecting a person or human experience? Okay. I'm going to repeat this back to you because when we think about why are you listening to this episode, Nina's teaching me about liberatory mindset. What does it mean? I want to invite you to recondition intentionally. I want to invite you to challenge thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that minimize, misrepresent, or outright reject some part of the human experience. Okay? Write that in your journal, rewind it if you need to, but we're going to keep going. Because many people will say to me, well, you know what, Nina, I can't help the way I think. And I'm going to say, yes, you can. Let me teach you some skills. That's all. You just weren't given the skills to really challenge maybe the way that you have been thinking. Let's get you some skills. We can change that, right? I'll hear a lot of the time, feelings wise, Nina, feelings, I can't change the way that I feel about this. It's just how I feel about this. What? You telling me you can never change how you feel about anything? Can you imagine? Could you imagine? The beauty of being human is that we can change how we feel about things, right? So then we move into behaviors. And I will hear often, Nina, I've done this since I was a kid. My family raised me this way. That's the way that it is. I just feel like, I wish I could change it, but I don't really believe there is any way to change it. And then I come around and y'all know what I'm gonna say, right? Of course you can change it. What is it that you need? Skills, right? And some people will actually say this is a tool, and that as you utilize the tool over time, you become skilled. It becomes a skill, right? So, whichever word you are using, I'm going to offer you a creative tool that I certainly hope that you utilize so that you feel skilled as you move through saying, no, I really do live in a liberated way. I really do see the world as more than what I was taught to see it as, right? I see the human experience as more diverse as it truly is, right? I see it in its multifaceted splendor as it truly is, right? And in many ways, for better or worse, right? It's multifaceted splendor. So I digress, you guys. I want us to bring it back. Because we're talking about challenging ways in which we may minimize, misrepresent, or outright reject, we want to be specific about what is it we're minimizing? What is it we're outright rejecting? What is it we're misrepresenting? There are parts of the human experience, and it could be either within us or it could be within someone else, okay? But it is something that we are usually trained to do when we grow up with our families. And here is the image, the creative image that I want to offer you. Are you ready? Let's do it. Get your journal out. Here we go. I want you to imagine that before you came into this world, there was already a box with your name on it. In fact, somebody else decided what your name was going to be, slapped it on that box, and then they started putting narratives in that box for you before you even came onto this planet. What? I know. So they started putting the narratives in the box. And then when you came into the world, there more people added more narratives into this box. And you didn't even know, but you were carrying the box. And it turns out that as you've gotten older, more narratives have been added. Some have been challenged, some have been taken out of the box. It's been a consistently changing box because you are human and you consistently change. But what you may not have realized is that still to this day, as you listen to this podcast or as you watch us on YouTube, you still carry that box. Whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not, there are so many narratives that are so much older than you. You've been carrying them in that box. And what you've been doing as you sort of hang on to that box is you've been judging the world around you, not for better or worse, just in a I'm noticing kind of way. And you've been saying, oh, that fits in my box, that you belong with me, right? You've been accumulating people and experiences and feelings and moments and places and jobs. And I could keep going. Do you see where I'm going with this? All these things that you say, oh, this goes in the box. But there's some other part of this whole cycle that happens as you have an experience and you put it in the box right after you've noticed it and you've judged it, it goes in the box. A part of this experience also includes judging what does not go in the box. Oh, yeah, you take an experience, you've looked at it, you've noticed it, you've judged it accordingly. You say, oh, you don't go in the box, you don't go in the box. And here's where I pause our story. You've been given a box. You've been putting things in it that feel like they belong in that box, but you've also been excluding things that do not feel like they belong in the box. And here's what I want to ask you. How intentional do you feel that you are when it comes to choosing what goes in the box versus what does not go in the box? First question there. How intentional have you been about choosing what goes in the box versus out? Versus just doing and acting and thinking in ways that you were taught. If you are thinking and feeling and behaving in ways that you are simply taught, then you're really not living intentionally in the world, right? You're sort of on autopilot. And this is likely how you were raised, right? Be on autopilot, do what we tell you to do, think what we tell you to think, feel what we tell you to feel. So when the stimuli in the environment, right, when things happen in your environment and you notice them and you judge them, you just automatically file it away and it belongs, or nope, you don't belong. If you are being intentional about your choices, then you are really saying, I'm trying to look at this and choose, does this go in my box or does this not go in my box? Okay. Now, this is the unintentional automatic first one that we went through. The second one was the intentional, and I'm trying to make a choice, right? But the reality is, whether you're unintentional or intentional about noticing things that go in the box or out of the box, I want you to ask yourself, how are you treating the people, places, events, cultures, identities that you do not put in your box? I'm going to give you a second to think about that because I really want you to think about that. It is likely that you do not automatically, if you're listening to this podcast, you are not a person who automatically all the time is just shelving things in different places, right? Either in or out. You're likely more trying to be intentional. That's why you're here. It's why you're leaning in. It's why you're listening, because you want to be more intentional about the choices you make, how you show up in the world, right? And you don't want to minimize, misrepresent, or outright reject another human being, right? That's just not the empowered human way. But even if we have recognized the binary between what goes in the box and what goes outside of the box, how are you treating what goes outside of the box for you? If you are living in a powered way, you are going to see what goes inside the box as the right way, and you're going to see what you've chosen, right, or whether automatically or unintentionally to put outside the box, as something that is wrong. Right? Again, powered thinking, feeling, and behaving says, well, my way, everything that's inside my box is right. Your way, because I've decided you don't go in my box, it's got to be wrong. That's the powered way, right? Somebody's got to be right and somebody's got to be wrong, right? Not necessarily. And you all know this, right? If you've been listening, welcome if you're new, but if you've been listening, you know that the empowered human way is to start recognizing it's not right or wrong, it's different. It's merely different, which is not to say that you agree with it, right? You don't have to agree with it. We just have to start acknowledging when it is actually different. It's just a different way that somebody else was raised. When we recognize it and see it as different, it's no longer, oh, well, I'm right inside the box and you're wrong outside the box. It's, oh, this is what I feel comfortable with inside my box. Oh, I'm less comfortable with that because it's not inside my box. Okay. Now, what do I want to do about that? How do I want to show up in the world? Yes? Okay. So, liberatory mindset, again, involves you coming from a neutral space of openness, right? Of reception, right? Receptivity, saying, I want to be able to notice that there is a binary, that I was given a box, that for some part of my life, I have at least in some way, shape, or form put things inside the box or decided things go outside the box. And it is highly likely that I have judged some of those things as right and wrong, as good or bad, right? Instead of what we're now trying to do as we liberate ourselves from the binary, start to think about the reality of, oh, my box is really just what I'm comfortable with because it's what I know. If you're outside of the box for me, that means it's just different and uncomfortable for me. And now we get to choose, right? How do we spectrumize this? Right now, we're not going to focus on spectrum thinking here in this episode. I just want you to focus on recognizing the binary, because that is when we say, oh, wait a minute. If this was in fact binary, that means clear the throat, please. You can liberate yourself from the binary. That is the tool for this upcoming week. How do you start to recognize the binary inside the box, outside the box? Yes. And how do you start to challenge that binary and liberate yourself? Now, earlier you might have heard me say, the shoulds, right, go in the box, right? This is how things should be. And shouldn't, oh, that's how things shouldn't be, go outside the box, right? Should and shouldn't is your flag. If you catch yourself saying should or shouldn't, it is maybe one of the easiest ways to recognize that a binary is present. And it may be one of the easiest ways for you to liberate yourself from that binary mindset, right? Into a liberated mindset. So, recap one, recognize your box. Yes, if you don't have your journal out already, y'all, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to flip the script on this binary thinking and move toward liberatory mindset. It takes practice. Yes, it is a tool that I'm offering you here. I want you to become skilled at utilizing it. And that's what it takes. It takes starting to recognize that there is a binary, that it's what we were all taught, right? Different binaries for different folks is the thing. And if we could just start to challenge that binary and recognize, wait a minute, there is so much more to the human experience than inside the box and outside the box, because here's the thing, people don't belong in boxes. Shocking for some people, I know, but it's the truth. We just don't belong in one or the other. We're this full, multifaceted, beautiful spectrum that is really cannot be described or defined in two options. And it does not matter what the concept or identity is. I want you to challenge me on this. If you are out there and you're like, okay, you know what, Nina, we're nearing the end of the episode. My takeaway is we've got this liberatory mindset thing. You want me to recognize when I'm putting things inside the box versus outside the box. And instead of saying it's good or bad or right and wrong, you want me to say that it's just different. And then you want me to act accordingly and intentionally. I'm like, yes, exactly. You've gotten it. Yes, yes. And then you come back and you say, but I bet that there are binaries on some things like murder, right, Nina? This is a great example. I get this one, right? We get this one a lot. Murder. Right, murder is wrong. Okay. So it's always right or it's always wrong. And we're saying that murder is always wrong, right? Because if we're stuck in a binary, then we don't liberate ourselves, right? To say, so what are we really saying, right? Murder means that I'm what? Intentionally killing someone? Was it an accident? Right? Does it still count if it's an accident that I killed someone? What if this someone, and here's why I go to such an intense example for those of you who are like, boy, Nina, we just took a real turn. What if I'm protecting someone in the moment? What if it was someone who has just attacked my mother in front of me? This is a true story. And I kill that person. As they were attacking my mother, I attacked them and I ended up killing that person. True story. Not my story, but it is a true story. And it's not the only story. There are so many stories out there. So you look at me and you say, well, murder is always wrong, right? Or always right. And I say, well, are we talking murder? Are we talking killing? Are we talking right? What's the mindset here? What's the wording on it here? Should someone pay forever for that? Should they always be judged accordingly just for that one thing? What about if they saved someone? Should they still be judged? What if they were an officer or a soldier, right? And this is sometimes comes with the line of duty. What if, right? And I could keep going. Now, here's the thing. I am playing with this. This is triggered. Can we play with that, right? I'm not telling you what to believe, right? You can absolutely still say, yes, Nina, murder is right and wrong, right? And that's your prerogative. What I want us to do is start to challenge the binary that suggests that in every human experience, always that there should be a particular way. Here's something else I'm going to ask you to put in that journal, right? Just like I just said, I want you to challenge that everyone should always exist in it, right? Should always exist in a particular way. All of those words are flags for a binary mindset. Here they are. Everyone versus no one, right? Always versus never, binary, right? Should versus shouldn't, binary, okay? I want us to liberate ourselves from the binary and start to think instead of should or shouldn't, right? Is it possible? Is it? Instead of everyone or no one, what about someone? Do some people engage in this way, right? Instead of always or never, what about sometimes? Is it sometimes true? We're talking about human to human interaction, y'all. And the reality is, there is so much gray on the human spectrum, so much gray, right? And if gray is not your jam, what I'm really saying is it is a rainbow variety of thoughts, feelings, behaviors, individual cultures that are happening. And so, as we wrap this episode, for those of you who enjoy a bit of self exploration, you know that I like to leave you with a question for the upcoming week, with something that you can really just sort of like salivate over, let percolate, or, whatever the case is that you're going to do with it. But I want to invite you to first ask yourself, I'm going to assume that you're already being intentional because you're listening to this episode. So I want you to first ask yourself, what identities or places or cultures do I already have an aversion to? What is the binary there? What do I already have an aversion to that I want to pull away from, that makes me uncomfortable, that I have said does not belong in my box? And how do I challenge, right? What is the binary there? Excuse me. The first one is just, what is the binary there? Got a bit ahead of myself. After you recognize what the binary is, if you want to level up, y'all, you want a bonus, I want you to ask yourself, how do I challenge this binary? Even if you only give yourself one more option, right? Only one more option between them, just like we did with, right? Always, never, sometimes is that middle option, right? No one, everyone, someone is that middle option. So if you are wanting that bonus, you want to level up, my challenge for you is to literally pen to paper, put the box, put what you think should belong in the box, right? Put the outsider section in, what you think should belong in the outsider section, and then put the reality of what is for humanity right in the middle. We all have boxes. We're not going to be able to get rid of them. My hope in sharing this liberatory mindset episode with you and in giving you these tools and in hoping that you'll make them skills, my hope is that you expand what your box has the capacity to hold. That is my wish and my hope for you this week, empowered human, that you lean in and take the opportunity to expand what your box has the capacity to hold. So, without further ado, that is what we planned for today, folks. Thank you so much for taking a minute to explore your triggers as a human being, and hold the phone. I hope you're still listening. We just wrapped the Empowered Human 101 workshop. There were so many goodies. We talked about the first 5 principles in there. If that is your jam and you're like, Nina, I want to level up, I really want to get into this empowered human mindset, go to my Instagram profile and click the link in there to take you to the RSVP page for the upcoming workshops. If you go back in RSVP, you can get access to the replays. If you want to RSVP for the upcoming workshop that is presently scheduled for the 23rd of September, that's a Friday at 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., around then, right? Sometimes we go over. It is going to be available as a replay, but you have to RSVP so that we can email you the replay. Okay. So go in and do that. It's specifically going to be on liberatory mindset. So you can bring your questions from this episode. You can bring the things you want to work on. I will be very short at the top of the episode, or the episode, I'm so used to episode now, at the top of that workshop, actually reteaching this skill, right? And offering some new examples. And then I want to be given examples. I want to work with you all so that we can continue the dialogue going. And that is what this end portion of this episode is about, continuing the dialogue and inviting you to continue the dialogue. So RSVP for the workshops, head to Instagram and click the link in the bio. They're free. They're free. If I didn't mention that already, I want us to get these resources out there and talking about them and sharing them so we can level up. I'm so ready to level up. And because this is what we planned for today, if this episode was helpful for you, please share it. Please share it. It is one of the most valuable things you can do, is to share a resource that benefited you as a human being, right? If you really want to help and get outside of your bubble, please give us a review. Put in the review specifically the episode that helped you. Yes, we all know that it's like, yes, we can give 5 stars to a podcast, and every episode may not be a 5 star episode. But if this was a 5 star episode for you, go tell someone about it and tell them it was the episode blibbity blobbity bloobity blah that it was, right? Go do that, please. It continues the message, which is what we want, right? We want to build that empowered human movement. So I'm going to stop talking. That's it. Share, subscribe, review, all the things. That is what helps new people find us. Otherwise, stay curious.